So you're going to use your X box, which is the thing we just reviewed with the Quizlet. When you have a trinomial pattern, what does our prefix tri mean? 3. So it's always going to look like this: ax squared plus bx plus c. You're going to have something x squared, something x, and then just a number. Ms. Cole, it's always going to follow that pattern? Yes. So that's what you need. You need to be a good noticer. So what you're going to do is set up your X box. The last term is going to go on the top, and the middle term is going to go on the bottom. All right. So for number 1, go ahead and draw your, well, first of all, do you notice how it follows the pattern? You have an X squared and then just an X and then just a number. Like, do you notice that? Like, that's the first thing you've got to notice. So the last term goes at the top. So 40 goes right there. 14 is going to go at the bottom. It always works that way, Ms. Cole? Yeah. The last number goes at the top. The middle number goes in the bottom. And then you're going to do exactly what we just did in the game. I need 2 numbers that multiply to be 40, add up to be 14. Good. 4 and 10. Are they both positive, or do we need a negative in there? Both positive. It won't work. So you will be like, oh, I have done goofed, and you'll flip it back. Okay, but we're going to do so many of these, you're probably not going to do that. If you're paying attention, it's not going to happen. So what you're going to do is draw 2 sets of parentheses here. And this is how you write your answer. X plus 4, X plus 10. Do you see how I just used those 2 numbers and put them in here? This is your answer. Now humor me for just a second, because I want you to understand what it is that we actually did. Do you remember a couple of classes ago when we did these and you multiplied X plus 4 and X plus 10? Humor me for just a second. What would go in this first box?
X squared.
Good. This would be 4x. This would be 10x. And then 4 times 10 is 40. The diagonal ones go together. And oh my gosh, do you see how we get what we started with? You just did that backwards. You just did it backwards is all that is. I know, right? All right, go ahead and draw your X. Which number is going to go at the top?
20.
Close. Negative 27. And then negative 6. So you're going to need one of each. But hold on. Just listen to me. Don't worry about the negatives. If you are talking, you are not listening. You can't do both at the same time. So if I hear your mouth, you're not listening. Right? Just come up with 2 numbers that multiply to be 27. We will worry about the negatives later. But we'll worry about the negatives later. So 9 and 3. Good job. 9 times 3 is 27. Now, which one gets the negative so that you can end up with a negative 6 when you add them together? Good. Negative 9 plus 3 gives you negative 6. All right. So draw your 2 blank parentheses. And your answer is X minus 9, X plus 3. Hey, Ms. Cole, what if I wrote it the other way? X plus 3, X minus 9. Fine. It doesn't matter what order you put it in. That's totally fine. All right, let's try another one. If you're talking, you're not listening. What number goes at the top? Yep, negative 14. Good. And then on the bottom, don't worry about the negative. We will figure that part out. Just get the numbers. What are numbers that multiply to be 14? Good. 7 and 2, or 2 and 7. It doesn't matter what order you put them in. Good. Why is it a negative 2? Because that's correct. 7 minus 2 is 5. So draw your 2 blank parentheses. And what's going to go inside is X minus 2, X plus 7. Good job. All right, a couple more. Stay focused. If you're talking, you're not listening. All right, for this one, what goes at the top? 36, good job. And at the bottom? All right, don't worry about the negative. We will figure that out later. Just come up with the numbers. 6 times 6 is 36. Good job. Now, what about your negatives? Because, good, they'll both be negative. Listen, negative 6 times negative 6 is positive 36. The negatives cancel. I should not hear any voice but my own. And this is a ridiculous recording at this point because all it is me scolding you guys. Stop it. I don't want this to be on my recording. And then -6 plus -6 gives you -12. So draw your two parentheses. And do you see how they came out to the exact same thing? Okay, we have one more step. Bless you. I call this I won't be rude. I'm not going to talk over you because I don't do that. When it comes out double, I call this one a twin. You have to write it as x minus 6 squared. Hey, Miss Cole, it's wrong if I don't do that? Yeah, you have to do that. If it comes out the exact same, that's a twin, you write it as squared. And if you'll humor me for just a second, do you remember a couple of classes ago when you had the x minus 6 squared and you did this, you put the same thing twice? We just did that backwards, all right? Now, what do you notice about this next one? You have to be a good noticer. Their numbers are bigger, okay? So what do you notice is in common between all of them? They all divide by 5. There's an extra step in this one, which is greatest common factor. That's what I taught you last time. Put 5, put a parenthesis, and if you want to write divided by 5 for all of them, you can. I want you to eventually get to the point where you don't have to do that, but we're going to divide them all by 5. You're undistributing a 5. It is just distribution, but backwards, right? So what's left for the first term? Yeah, 1x squared. You can put a 1 if you want to. Plus 4x, good, minus 21. Good job. So what we're going to do, and I'm a big proponent of set it up blank and then come back and fill it in. That 5 is just there. I do not have a better explanation for you than it is just there, okay? Draw your two blank parentheses. Just set it up blank. We'll come back and fill it in. And we're going to do our X box. What number goes at the top? -21. Good job. Perfect. And then on the bottom, 4. Nice. Don't worry about the negative. We will just figure that out later. What are some numbers that multiply to be 21? That's what you want to think of. 7 times 3. Good job. Now go back and figure out which one gets the negative. So what do you think? Good. 7 minus 3 equals 4. And so what's going to go in these blanks? X plus 7, x minus 3. I will deal with passes, but let me finish this last problem because we only have one more. So what do you notice? You have to be a good noticer. They all divide by 3. We're going to do the same thing we just did in this one. Put a 3, put a parenthesis. Let's see if you can divide them by 3 without me writing it on every single term. 1x squared, good. If you divide this one by 3, good. Minus 4x, beautiful, plus 4. So set it up blank. Like just leave them blank and we'll come back and fill it in. I'm going to have to draw my X up here because I wrote too big on problem 5, so I ran out of space. What goes at the top? 4. And on the bottom, -4. So you need some numbers that multiply to be 4. You don't have a whole lot of choices there. 2 times 2. Which one's negative or both? They're both negative. -2 and -2 makes -4. And a negative times a negative is a positive, which is what you got there. So what goes in your parentheses? Yeah, x minus 2 and x minus 2. Oh my gosh, what did we notice? It's a twin, so it's x minus 2 squared. The 3 is just there. The 3 is just there, that's all. All right, so go ahead and flip over. I just did those first because we had just reviewed the Xbox thing. Next type of factoring, and let's review all the types of factoring we've done so far. First was greatest common factor, and then we just did the trinomials. They always follow this pattern. The next one is for grouping. Grouping is when you have 4 terms. So that's how you can always tell when it's grouping is when you have 4. All right, so it's easy to notice. First thing you're, well, here, first let's count. Do you see this? 1, 2, 3, 4. Do you see how it has 4 items being added and subtracted? It's like the first thing you got to notice, okay, is what, because when you take a test, all the types of factoring are going to be all mixed up, all right? You're going to group the first 2 and the second 2. All that means is put parentheses around them. Do you see how I grouped them? I'm going to cover this up, and we're going to factor out a greatest common factor from each group. So look just at the first 2. What can you divide out of both of them? Good, 3. What else? Because 3 is correct, and we can take, what else do they both have? X, good. So put 3x and put some parentheses. Now, if you want to write divided 3x, I'll do that on the first few of them. Again, I eventually want you to get to the point where you don't have to write that every single time. I'm trying to save you some work, all right? But what's left? Well, from the first one, the 3's cancels, that's gone. Just x. Do you see how you have an x squared and then an x to the first? 2 minus 1 is 1. Or you could think of it like one of the x's canceled, all right? Minus, good. Why is there not an x? Correct, exactly. The x canceled. All right, now listen to me. When you do the second half, there will be an x minus 5. Nicole, always it's going to match? Yes, otherwise it won't work. Okay, it's going to be the same thing. Now I'm going to cover up all of this. Look at just these 2. What divides out of both of them? 2. Now, specifically a positive 2, and you need to put whether it's positive or negative there. Now, if you divide those both by 2, you will be left with just x minus, oh my gosh, 10 divided by 2 is 5. Do you see how it came out to the exact same thing? Ain't that crazy? All right, so your final answer, you're going to have 2 blank parentheses. In one of them, and the order does not matter, so just pick one or the other, it doesn't matter. In one of them, you're going to put that thing that's the same. And then in the other one, you're going to put what's left. So 3x plus 2. Do you see that there? You are. Let's try it again. You don't do just one example and then stop. You know, that's why there's a few of them on here. Do you notice how there's 4 terms? Like, that's the first thing, is what type of factoring am I doing? Okay, there's 4 of them, so we're going to do grouping. So group the first 2 and group the second 2. Just give them all some hugs, all right? First one's 4. Yes, let me cover this up. You can divide out 4, good. And what else can you divide out of x? Good. So we're going to put 4x, put a parenthesis. And if you want to write divided 4x, then you can do that. So hold on. Yeah, you're racing ahead, which is fine. That's good. I just want to make sure everybody's together. 8 divided by 4 is 2. And then what else is still there? Just x. Good. Plus 3. What's going to show up in the second half? 2x plus 3. It's going to, or you've done goofed. All right. So I'm going to cover all of that up. We're going to look just at this part. What do these share in common? What have they both got? Y, specifically a plus y. You need to put whether it's positive or negative. And if you divide out a y, the y's are going to cancel. You'll have 2x plus 3. Isn't that neat? So draw your 2 blank parentheses. And what's going to go in one of them, and again, it doesn't matter which one, is the stuff that was the same. Yeah, good. And then if you cover this up, the stuff that's left is 4x plus y. We'll try a couple more. If you listen to me quietly through these 2 and it seems like you've got it, like, you know, the point of notes is to make sure you're good. How many terms does this have? 4. See how there's 4? That's your indication, like, hey, I need to do grouping. Again, on your test, all the types of factoring are going to be all mixed up. So you have to look at it and go, hey, what type is this? So I'm going to cover this up. What do these first 2 both have? 1x. Good. So I'm going to just put x, and we're going to divide out an x. So what is left when you divide both of those by x? Just x plus... Hold on. We we got really discombobulated there. Just x plus, and then here the x's will cancel and you have 2. Good. So in the second half, you're going to get an x plus 2. It has to work out that way. Good. If I cover this up, you can take a -7 out of both of those, and the negatives will all cancel, and you will be left with x plus 2, because the negatives cancel. That's why keeping whether this is positive or negative there is so important. So you're going to draw your 2 parentheses, and in one of them, you're going to put the stuff that was the same. And then what's going to go in the other one? Yeah, the other stuff, right? X minus 7. Let's try one more. Do you notice how there's 4 terms? You're like, why does she keep harping on about this? Because again, you have to notice, you have to be a good noticer. And go, hey, this is going to be grouping. So if I cover this up, what can you divide out of both of these? 5x. Good job. I'm going to try and get you to do this without me writing divide 5x, divide 5x. Let's see if you can do it. You would be left with just x, because the 5s would cancel. Good. Why is it 2? 10 divided by 5 is 2. The x's canceled out. You're going to end up with an x minus 2. You have to, or it's a not doable problem. Now, this is kind of tricky. We're going to divide out, very close, not a 1 though, we're going to divide out a -1. Watch what happens. If you divide both of these by -1, they just flip-flop their sign, so it's going to be a positive x minus 2. That's really tricky when it's 1, and especially when it's -1. So draw your 2 blank parentheses. And I'm a huge fan of set it up blank and then just go back and fill it in, like your framework. So what's going to go in one of them? X minus 2, and then 5x minus 1 is the other one. You are.